tensions, and we're really concerned about that we have a lot of communities that are not just about gangs, but about racial tensions. So you have Mexican national gangs fighting against traditional Chicano, Latino gangs, fighting against African American gangs, fighting against Asian gangs. And so we have that racial tension that's overlaying in this. And the gang systems, by and large, continue to thrive. Gangs are not new to us, by the way. We can trace gangs back from the 1930s, and you can trace them back and all the industrial components. It was a way actually to help introduce people to this country as a way of belonging. Nationally, right now, there's about 25,000 different gang systems in the United States, with a membership of over 770,000 people. Locally in Denver, according to the CBI stats, we have about 8,800 members, and those are the known members. We know in working with juvenile stuff, there's many kids who are involved in gangs who are not part of those roles under the police department list. And we know that they're operating in about 78 different gang systems, just in Denver alone. In the state of Colorado, it's reported over 12,000 gang members, and that does not include all of the larger states, all the larger communities or cities within the state of Colorado. We also know that it ranges between actually 16 to 18%. It's been 16% of the murders of the homicides in the last 3 years, but overall in the last 8 years, 18% of the homicides are gang-related that are taking place in Denver. Now let me put a caveat on that. Denver is an extremely safe community. If you look at other cities our size and their homicide rates, we are really, really safe. But we still have too much for us. And we know that the gang unit, we have a very active gang unit, and their investigations have continued to increase. We know just on our Denver Juvenile Probation Services, about 90 to 95% of the violent cases that they see coming in are all gang involved and gang related. And in fact, 14 of the 15 minors that were arrested this last year were because of murder or attempted murder, were all gang involved. So what happens when you get involved in a gang? You are likely to be arrested more often, with more types of violent crimes, and at a higher base rate. That you tend to have a lower than rate of graduation and employment, and that's important for all of us, especially in trying to grow our economy. And they have twice the frequency of morbidity and mortality. We also know the emotional and financial toll. Any of you that have known somebody who has had to go through a trial process, or has someone, a loved one, that's now doing time in prison, or has had to bury someone because of this senseless kind of violence, you know that emotional toll that takes on folks. And it has a very unique kind of bystander effect. So when there are drive-by shootings that are taking place in downtown Denver, when clubs are getting out at night, that has a very interesting kind of effect on people. And for you as business persons, by and large, you start getting really concerned about people coming down and feeling safe to be in this particular environment. We know that it has impacts on personal safety. I'm not going to read all of these. Overall kind of quality of life, schools, and then financially. And there's a number up here of $5,500 a day. So in California, they did a study about the cost, the financial cost of hospitalizing someone just for gang-related crimes, and it came out to be $5,500 a day is the average cost for a gang-related crime. When we first started the GRASS program, which is the Gang Intervention and Support Project, a young man had been shot. He was in the hospital in intensive care for 11 days. This is 1991. His hospital bill for 11 days was $236,000. He was 18 years of age, had no insurance. Thank you so much, again, for picking up that tab. You also picked up, unfortunately, the tab to bury him, because he died after those 11 days in the hospital in that hospital stay. And we know that there's other kinds of effects like graffiti, and not all graffiti is gang-related at all, but it's about $3 million in cost to us as a city to remove graffiti. I'm not going to go through this one because of time, but basically we know that, and a lot of our work is centered around schools, because it's a place where we can get to the kids and we can start to kind of make some inroads in changing the culture. We also know that we have to pay attention to things like graffiti, and I call it the writing on the wall. And there's all different kinds of graffiti. So up top here you have Sereno graffiti, down below you have folk versus people graffiti. And what happens if you don't take down the graffiti, they continue to come in and impact it. And so this down here is, by and large, all crypt graffiti down at the bottom. Now the good thing about graffiti, I don't know if it's good, but the thing about graffiti that's gang-related is that most of you can probably read it. When we get into some of the tagging kind of graffiti, and we don't have time to do that today, tagging graffiti, it's difficult to read for a lot of folks. And so a lot of times we understand it even less. But gang graffiti is very, very clear. And what it's telling us is who I'm aligned with, who I'm against, what kind of activities I do, what my turf and territory is that I claim, and what system I'm claiming, and who I am. And here, of course, there's a lot of disrespectful things going on with our law enforcement. It also, in this particular one, is talking about who's been killed in our arch enemies and who in our system has been killed. When we look at our work around gang stuff, it's really about changing the culture and the families and the communities. Our kids are bought and sold to gang systems. I'm so marketing we have to pay attention to. And here we have music systems, we have the internet that is bought and selling this. We have all different kinds of music that is specifically gang music, gangster rap kind of music. We have all different kinds of magazines that are sold to kids about gang-related behavior and criminal-related behavior. There are games that are out there. This one is gang simulation, where you actually learn. It's kind of effective on time management, I suppose, because what you learn about is how to organize your time, and you get to like abuse coke for an hour or so, and then you can go mug some people, and then you can kill some people. That's the type of thing that these games are about, and kids have access to them. This is $14.95 off the internet. And then there's the clothing. And clothing is a very big deal. So this particular ad with the guys with the shirts up, these are two actual gang members from California. This is a Dickies ad. Dickies, you will never see this ad in the United States. If you do, please send it to me. This ad was in a magazine overseas. I called them and said, I want to talk to you about this ad. They said, what are you talking about? I sent them a picture of it. They said, that's not ours. I said, you might want to talk to somebody about advertising for you then. The message is very clear that they're sending out here about gangs and about that it's okay, normalizing the gang behavior. Then there was these hats up top. Those were taken off the market, thank heavens, in about 2 weeks after being on, clearly marketing to the gang culture. And then the shirt below says, join a gang, and it has a gun on it. That I went into a store just up here in the Capitol Hill area and asked them to get rid of those T-shirts. I had no authority to do that. None. But I asked them to get rid of those T-shirts. And what they told me is that, oh, it's just a joke. I just left a funeral of a kid. I didn't think it was very funny. So how do we learn? There are 3 ways that we have learned everything we know how to do, whether you're talking about tying your shoe or shooting a gun. And that is through direct observation, direct instructional methods, modeling behavior, and reinforcement. So what I see, so it's modeled for me, what I'm taught, and how it's reinforced. Everything we know comes through those 3 ways of learning. And that's just as true for gang systems. That's why I talk about it being preventable. So here we have pictures of parents teaching their children, modeling the behavior. Funeral scenes. And memorials. So the guys who are pouring out the alcohol, that's something that's very common to have done year after year on anniversary dates of somebody being killed, where they will come together and they will have a memorial for them. And they will tip a 40 or throw out some of the alcohol in order to kind of recognize them and the impact that they had in their lives. And then this other one is actually a photo of a bunch of gang members, some former, some not so former, who were all part of a recent funeral that we were at this summer. Oop, I lost my top of my wording there. But basically what we have to do is and what we are involved in Denver right now, Lee was alluding to it, is this model. And it's a comprehensive model to say we have to change things. And I'm going to run out of time here. We've got to change things. So we are trying to change the message. You're going to see murals up in the city, and those murals are going to be saying to us that stop this violence. And it's a message directly to the kids, and it's working. It's about doing different kinds of services in the community. And it's about creating alternatives, whether through Parks and Rec or through different kinds of programs or providing services. About doing things. This is down at the Holly, at the mural project we did at the Holly after the Holly was burnt down, to try to help the community heal. We are working right now in 4 communities. And those are communities that are hard hit by violence. Of those 4 communities, they had 783 violent offenses: robberies, homicides, simple assaults, and aggravated assaults. And aggravated assaults means that there was some kind of a weapon and there's actual